my 6. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Homesteading Off the Grid, the most popular homesteading channel on the entire internet that has absolutely nothing to do with homesteading. So get my 6, for those of you who are new. It's a military term for watch behind me, get my back. Noticed a couple of commenters, more than one, from yesterday's video at around the 4.5 minute mark. They saw one that they commented that they saw a Bigfoot back there. One of the commenters potentially saw 2. There may have been 2. So you keep looking. Yep, I think we might have a visitor up there on top of the hill already. Where'd he go? He just ducked down, didn't he? This show is really like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. So here's what you're going to get today, though, and I'm going to try not to prolong this. We've made our decision with our son. If you've been following the saga here the last couple of weeks, 2 weeks before this current school year began, the public school that my son attends, the county, informed 1,000 families that they would not be providing our children with busing services this year. So they did this with 2 weeks to go because you need at least that much time to execute other options such as homeschooling, private school. So they waited, and they knew ahead of time. So it was a total smoke and mirrors, pulling the rug out from underneath a bunch of hardworking families. So we've got folks who, some of them have had to quit their jobs to take their children to school. As you know, most households in America depend upon 2 incomes to make ends meet. So now we've got a bunch of families in our area here in Central Virginia who are back to being 1-income families. We've got people, got an email, shared it. A woman was working full-time. She's now working 20 hours a week, and they can no longer help their 20-year-old son who's attending college over at James Madison University. They can't help him out financially, so now he's got to become burdened with student loan debt if he wants to finish. So our decision was this, because I was facing driving 20 hours a week, and I just refused to do it. I know the value of my time. Most people don't, and I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit today, because this was a big influencer into the decision we made. We pulled him out of the public schools. My son, Daniel, will no longer be attending public schools. It's kind of like a homeschool type thing, but it's also a virtual, it's a fully accredited private school. Now listen, you can do fully accredited public through this organization, and it's free if you do this. So if you're listening, if you're one of our neighbors who have been affected by the inefficiencies and the incompetencies of our local public school system, who are more concerned with pronouns, it seems, and forming a teachers union, which failed miserably, than they are with getting the children to school, this is a potential alternative for you. It's the site's easy to remember. It's k12.com. If your child is attending public school, the government is giving that school funding for your child's attendance. If you pull them out of there and go with k12.com public, it's free to you. The funding just switches from going to that private school. And if you want to hit them where it hurts, and that was part of our decision. Now, the reason we're doing the private route is because they are more flexible with you. They've got instructors all over the world. So we intend to do some traveling. We love to travel, and we have a very supportive and extensive family in the Philippines. My wife's Filipina. My son Daniel was born in the Philippines. We actually didn't move here until 3 months before he started kindergarten. And the number one reason we did that is because we wanted him to be educated here. We wanted the public services, the free transportation to school, the free public education. And we came to an area that when I first came here in the late 90s was the 3rd wealthiest county in the nation. It's a very affluent area. A lot of taxes are paid. I pay a lot of taxes. But they can no longer afford busing. It's insane. I'm telling you, if you've ever read Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, we're in those days. We are in the days of Atlas Shrugged. He shrugged. You know, they want to blame the capitalists for being the root of everything that ails society, while that's who's carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders, providing jobs, providing services, providing technologies and innovations, which makes all of our lives simpler, more efficient. And gets tired of carrying the weight of the world, and he shrugs. What happens? Well, the world's not in a position to take care of itself. Man, it's insane. The indoctrination. So here's my experience so far with K-12. I'm going to explain more. Well, and my point of that was that when we do travel and when we do go overseas, Daniel can still do his coursework. He has teachers, real teachers. It's FaceTime. Much of the coursework he will do on his own under my watchful eye, is what they call a learning coach. He will be doing anywhere from, I saw a bird. I saw a movement, so I had to check it out. It was just a bird. He's going to be dealing with his school stuff 4 to 6 hours a day. And it's going to require about 2 hours a day of my time to be his learning coach. Now, he's in 7th grade. The content shouldn't be too above my pay grade. But if ever, let's say we get into the math. I don't know this new math stuff. It doesn't make any sense to me. If I'm not up to par with instructing him on the coursework, we have 100% access 100% of the time to an actual certified teacher. We've been given one, and it's really neat because she's in Washington State, which is 3 hours behind us time-wise, so we don't have to worry about early mornings anymore. No, I get up between 4:30 and 5 and do my thing. But and when we go to the Philippines, instead of being a full 12-hour time difference away from his instructor, it'll only be a 9-hour difference. So that'll be easier to make FaceTime instruction available with her. But it's a combination, and the private academy is not unaffordable. It's, I think, total $6,000 a year, and they will allow you to make monthly installment payments of $632 a month for 10 months. The coursework, the instruction starts towards the tail end of September, and it goes to the tail end of June of next year. So the school starts a little bit later, it ends a little bit later, but it's no big deal because we're on our time. And if you do the public and it's free, if you live in Ohio and you want to spend the winter in Florida because you don't like the cold anymore, you can do that. And you can take your kid and stay in Florida, or just a vacation if you want to get away and go somewhere. You got a wedding out in Idaho you got to go to. No school will be missed. So it's very flexible. Now, here's some thoughts I have on this. I don't know how it's going to go. We've never done this, but this seemed to be the best option for our family. I would have simply lost too much revenues doing all the driving back and forth. And I'm not, I mean, 6 digits worth of revenues this would have cost me by inefficiently using my time, taking my son to school and back because they refused to provide us busing. So I just wasn't going to do it. Wasn't going to take that financial hit. With our family being multicultural, multi-continental, it gives us a freedom because my wife dearly and Daniel and myself have talked about when he was finished with schooling here, spending half the year in the U.S. at our beautiful homestead here in Virginia, Central Virginia, and spending half the year in the Philippines, the cold half over here. I never want to see winter again. And I'd like to spend fall here, winter there, spring here, summer there. The summers are actually hotter and more unbearable in Virginia than they are there. Temperatures average mid to upper 80s over there that time of year. But it's tropical, so it's like that all year round. So, but here, during COVID, stick with me on this. During COVID, I think it was for a year and a half, all the kids were being schooled virtually at home. Got to stay hydrated. About an hour before this, I ran 5 miles. So, that worked out better for us than actual brick and mortar school. And I think that gave us some key insight into just how much education in America and around the world was going to change and is through our example. And I've got another example too. I've got a sister that teaches. She's my big sis. Love her to death. She was a public school teacher for many, many years. Overworked, underpaid. Listen, I'm not anti-teacher by any means. There are wonderful teachers. Every teacher that my son had through grade school were wonderful, and we felt honored to have them. Things were different in middle school. They have an agenda where he attends middle school. It's the woke agenda. I shared with you, they pulled him into the counselor's office and asked him what it was like to go to school with all these white kids because he's biracial, and they were trying to make an issue out of something out of an issue that wasn't there. Then of course the questionnaires at the beginning of the year asking which pronouns our child prefers. We never dealt with any of that in his grade school, and then we went to this school and it's like, what is this, so but even with that we acquiesced. We just said, okay, go along to get along. But then they yanked the buses away from us. Enough's enough. That's not the only reason we made this decision, but that's the straw that broke the camel's back. That's when I just said enough's enough. So during COVID, he was home doing the virtual school, and he's a good kid. His friends are good kids. They're disciplined. They're respectful. Nobody in our friends group had a problem with it. The parents said, hey, you get your behind in front of that laptop, and we'd check on them, make sure they were there. They make sure they weren't in there playing video games on another gadget. It worked out really well. And when they started going back to school, and then it's like, okay, the bus is 30 minutes late. Excuse me, when they did have buses. And they would never tell you that until it was 10 minutes late. So you're down there in the cold, getting behind on your work. And then it's an hour late coming home in the evenings. All these inefficiencies and this crap about lining up to go here, line up to go there. I heard a very distinct tree knock from right back here behind me. So it's wasted time. Listen, I am a business person. I know you see me as some people would say influencer. I don't like that term. Let me explain the history of that term for you. I'm a social media content creator, and this is a business. 5 or 6 years ago, as recently as that, people used to ask me what I do for a living, and I'd say, well, I'm a YouTuber, or, I create content for multiple social media platforms, because throughout the years I've worked for multiple. The lion's share of our revenues is coming from Facebook now over at Sick Twisted Humor. And they'd laugh. They go, no, really, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a social media content creator. And they would say, do you actually make money doing that? Well, the secret's out. I don't get asked that question anymore because people know, and they know it's mountains of it. It's dump truck loads of it. It's the new economy. It's the new economy. I was talking to a guy at the gym the other day, and wonderful guy. I really like him. But he was talking about the advancements of technology and how it's going to solve all the world's problems. And I said, yeah, it's going to solve a lot of them. I said, for years, and I believe this, I said, for years, I have stated that I believe social media is the best thing we've had as a human race to where we may potentially end poverty. And he says, how so? I said, they can become content creators. If you're in a third world country, and we have friends in the Philippines, Filipinos who didn't finish any sort of public school education, who have known nothing but third world poverty. We're talking about living on $2 a day, who make more money than any of my neighbors where I live. Hundreds of thousands of dollars a year because they are either entertaining or they have a skill and they showcase it on social media, on the internet, and they are no longer poor. So I told this guy that, and he laughed. He laughed at me, and he says, do you know what the odds of somebody actually becoming a successful influencer is? And I'm like, well, I don't guess so. And he explained to me that it's like the equivalency of when we were children, all kids wanting to grow up to be a professional athlete. He says, you hear all these kids these days saying, I want to grow up and be an influencer. I want to grow up and be an influencer. He's like, none of them are going to do it. It's just the same as professional athletes. So later in the conversation, he asked me what I did, and I told him I was a social media content creator. And he was like, I thought I was kidding. I said, well, it's what you called an influencer. Here's why I don't use that term in regard to myself. That term was created by the social media platforms to stroke the egos of content creators. I am not an influencer. I do not influence you or anyone else, I hope. I create content that obviously, more than 1 million people regularly find entertaining. We've got 691,000 followers on Sick Twisted Humor on Facebook. We've got 320 some thousand here. You do the math, it's over 1 million. Then of course, Dearly runs the Homesteading Off the Grid Facebook page. It's got like almost 60,000, I think. So, well over 1 million people watch. And I remember when we started this, here's what I told that guy. Anybody who wants to be successful at anything can do it if they work hard, they work smart, they're persistent, they're consistent, they never give up. We used to not be able to eat. When we were in the Philippines, we made sure our son was fed, and Dearly and I went to bed most days without dinner. And I would ask her, are you hungry? She said, no, I'm fine. What about you? No, I'm fine. We admitted years later when we could afford to eat regularly that we were starving. We just didn't want the other to know because we didn't want him to feel bad. So we hit pay dirt early about 12 years ago. After much hard work of living that way, we started making money with social media, and we were fantasizing about getting to 100,000 followers or subscribers because that we could afford to actually do this full time. We're 10 times past that, and we're living 10 times as well. So anybody can do it. It's out there. I've talked to people until I'm blue in the face, guys that know how to fix stuff. If every time you took the time to just fix something in your house that breaks, or something in your garage, or you're working on a power tool, if you just took the time to record that and uploaded that to a YouTube channel, like created a YouTube channel, in time with enough of those videos, you, honest to God, could quit your day job and you'd be asking yourself why you ever had it in the first place. That's a true story right there. So anyway, we're at the point now, though, and this was a major determining factor in pulling our son out of the schools, aside from just the woke agenda and the lack of their willingness to provide busing. Efficiency. We're at the point in our business to where wasting time costs us money. And I don't work all the time. I'm totally all about work-life balance. I exercise every day. I love it. I enjoy it. I coach my son's sports, multiple sports, football and basketball. And we were fortunate enough to get him back into his old flag league. They put him back in, same team. I'm offensive coordinator again. That's important to me. Athletics, sports, competition is healthy. Healthy competition is healthy. It teaches kids how to be winners, and that's important. That's something our society is moving away from. They're telling these little boys that masculinity is toxic. No, it's not. It's masculine. And real women love it. They're attracted to it. It's true. My wife tells me all the time. She goes, I don't know how these women can be married to all these beta males around here. So anyway, time with my family, time with my wife, time with my son consumes hours of my day. Work consumes about 4 hours of my day. I was looking at getting that cut in half, which would, of course, cut our revenues in half, and I wasn't willing to do it because I certainly wasn't going to take time away from my family. I wasn't going to give up coaching. I wasn't going to get all fat and out of shape by no longer exercising daily, like literally 29 days a month. I might take 1 day a month off. So it is a work-life balance thing. And traditional brick and mortar school and that system is it's outdated. It's obsolete. We found out during COVID that our kids could sit in front of a laptop for 3 hours a day and achieve the same objectives. Now, socialization is important. My kid has a ton of friends. Our family has a ton of friends. Again, he's active in sports. 3 days a week. In the fall, it's football. 3 days a week. In the winter, it's basketball. 3 days a week. In spring, it's back to football. He has play dates. He just spent 2 nights with one of his best friends. This summer, we went to Long Island, the Hamptons, with 4 different families, and they all had kids. So socialization is not an issue. And we're not wasting our time. And listen, my son was struggling in one of his classes this past year, and he never has. Through grade school, that kid never got a B. Straight A's. Through grades 1 through 5. He goes off to this middle school, and he's coming home with a C. I'm like, what's going on here? Well, it turns out he's got a couple of buddies that he was in class with who were just talking to him all the time. They were hanging out in class. And that particular teacher was one of the teachers that was more concerned with pronouns than she was coursework. I said, you need to go to that school and you need to not sit with those guys during that class. You talk to them at lunch, you talk to them if you're out after lunch, you get a break. They play football a lot and basketball. Talk to them at our house, talk to them at their house. So he says, okay, so he did it and he got the grade back up. But I asked him, I said, what about those guys? Their grades got to be suffering too. It was actually taking place in 2 different classes, same guys. He says, oh no, they don't have to worry about it. And I said, what do you mean they don't have to worry about it? That was a loud, thunderous tree knock back there. All right, now listen, I'm going to finish this story about these 2 other kids that were little chatty Cathys, even though they were both guys. And I say this with no disrespect intended towards these 2 boys. I know them both, and they're great kids, wonderful kids. They are not at fault here. The system is at fault, and this is another deciding factor with pulling my son out of the public schools. He said they don't have to worry. They've got A's. I'm like, well, if they're talking to you through these classes and you're coming home with C's, how is it that they have A's? Are they that smart? And he goes, no, it's not that. He says, they have IEPs. I was like, what? That's an individualized education plan. It's for kids with special needs, what they used to call special education. They used to go off to their own classes. In the 90s, they started integrating them, which I think is wonderful, except for in this situation. So I said, I don't understand why they have A's, they got IEPs, and all they do is talk in class. He told me that they told him that they know their teachers will not fail them because their teachers will lose their jobs because these kids have IEPs. They write out, this is the learning objectives for these children. This is how we will achieve these objectives. The teachers make these things with I think the parents are involved, guidance counselor, maybe a medical professional. Say, this is this kid's learning disability. So based upon this, we need to do these things so that this child can be successful and not be left behind. One of those 2 boys told my son that his teachers have done his work for him his entire educational career because they can't let him fail because they'll lose their jobs. So they're not paying attention in class, not doing the work because all they're doing is talking, and they're going home with A's because they have IEPs. My son isn't paying attention in class, isn't doing the work, but he doesn't have an IEP. He's coming home with a C. That is a broken system. So are you doing these kids any favors that have these special needs by just pushing them through the system, especially if it's so that you don't lose your job? The schools aren't allowed to discipline anymore. We know that. So my child was being held back because of some distractions from other children in the public school system. That's not going to be an issue here. It was never an issue during COVID. And it won't be an issue now that we're doing the virtual online homeschool through the private academy of K12.com. And I want to point out, I'm not endorsing this company. I'm not being paid to promote them. I will share our family's experience with you as the story develops as we move forward with this. And it might not work. We might have to go to another alternative. But the public school system will no longer be that alternative, at least not at this middle school. And it's just, we don't know where we're going to be. We're talking about going to Singapore, Malaysia. So whatever, that's a whole another topic for another time. But that's the decision we've made. We've had it. Enough's enough. The straw that broke the camel's back was their refusal to provide us with busing. But the waste of time too. I want my son. He's got a business mind. He's a kid. He's 12, but he knows how to think. Most people stay busy. They're so busy. You hear them talk about, oh, I'm so busy. I did this. I took this kid to soccer, and then I did this. I had to leave work early to go this, and then I had to meet so-and-so for lunch, and then had to have coffee with so-and-so. Most people are super busy, but very few people are actually productive. And our public school system teaches children how to be busy. How to be busy. How to waste 8 hours of your day to maybe do 2.5 hours worth of actual instructional coursework. You're setting them up for failure. And my son's no longer going to be a part of it. My son gets to watch my efficiency and how I do things efficiently. You know what I do? One of the things I do from behind the scenes that you don't see, the Facebook page, Sick Twisted Humor. A post hits that page every 30 minutes from 7 a.m. until midnight, every day. Every 30 minutes, it's either a funny joke, or it's a funny quote, or it's a riddle. We're big at riddles over there, and I do that intentionally because the majority of our audience there, just like here, is my age or older, 74% of them. Riddles keep your mind sharp, and as you age, you've got to keep that mind sharp. So it's fun. People will get on there. 1,000 people will try to solve the riddle, and then 30 minutes later, another 1,000. We have a huge audience over there. I don't sit there every 30 minutes and post something on Facebook. You could. That's inefficient. You'd have to do it from 7 a.m. to midnight. They have a business suite of tools that I've taught myself. I've learned how to do it. I can schedule an entire day's worth of posts in 30 minutes. So every day I schedule at least 2 days. That way I'm 10 days out. And so when, like this past weekend, my son stayed with a friend, man, my wife and I enjoyed date time for 2 days. We went hiking for 3 hours one day. We went out to go biking the next day, but he ended up wanting to come home early, so we got him. So if I want to have a day where I don't have to do anything, I can. And every 30 minutes, posts are hitting that page and thousands of people are interacting with them, and my family is getting paid. That's an example of efficiency through the use of systems, services, software. That's the crap they don't teach. It's like, oh, go to work. Make sure you're there 40 to 60 hours a week, you know. There's this nut job. I know you've heard of him. He's a nut job, but this is proof that even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. You ever heard of a guy called Bernie Sanders? He has this belief system in a 4-day work week. I am spot on, Bernie. I agree with that. It's never going to happen, though, because the corporations won't let it. That's going to cost them profits. Now, those of us who run our own businesses, professionals, lawyers, doctors, 4-day work weeks all the time. All the time. And then when we do work, it's 4 hours a day. And we get more done in 4 hours than the average typical middle-class working schmo will get done in their 10 or 12-hour day. And it's not because we're smarter than them, okay? I have a neighbor up the road who told me I'm nothing more than a dumb hillbilly from West Virginia. No matter what I've done, where I've been, how many books I've written, what I've accomplished on social media, I'm from West Virginia, so I'm just a dumb hillbilly. Might have something to do with that guy having not 1 but 2 degrees from UVA and makes less money I make more money in a month than he makes in a year. And that is a fact. Yeah, just because of where I'm from. No hope for me. And what's interesting about this is, guess what? This guy's a teacher. Yeah. In this system that claims to be all about equity and integration, inclusion. So, dude is one of those that had those signs. You've probably seen him in his yard that read, we don't care where you're from. We're happy you're our neighbor. And then it said it in 4 different foreign languages. Didn't say it in Hickonics. So I guess he should have put down there, unless you're from Appalachia, then we're not glad you're our neighbor. Oh, and yeah, you don't get treated with kindness, which is free, because you're from Appalachia, so you don't count. That's the hypocrisy of so many of the people that are in this system. Yeah. So anyway, I know what teachers make. Do the math. I make more in a month than that guy makes in a year. But I'm a dumb hillbilly because of where I'm from. Go figure. So, it's not about intelligence. It's about understanding what it is you do for a living, for one thing, and it's about understanding the difference between being busy and being efficient, between being busy and being productive. You can be busy all day long and get all kinds of stuff done and not generate $1 worth of revenues. Or you can be efficient, you can be productive and work 3 or 4 hours a day and make 12 to 15 times as much as the average teacher in America. So, and the beauty of it is it's all a choice. It's all a choice. I mentioned my sister, who I'm going to wrap it up with this, was a public school teacher for many, many years. Yeah, until after COVID. I mentioned earlier, too, they were trying to start a teachers union here. It failed miserably. If you don't like how much you're paid, go work somewhere else. It's that simple. My sister did that. She is now a teacher for a virtual academy, fully accredited online virtual academy, and her income doubled over what she was getting paid. Because when we went to COVID, she was one of the teachers who, when the kids went back to school, stayed on to do the virtual teaching for the kids that maybe still had underlying health issues, or their parents still weren't quite convinced it was time to send their kids back to the schools. Man, they recruited her. She got scouted by multiple private virtual academies, and she never thought she'd see the day where she's making the kind of money she's making right now teaching. There are opportunities and options out there. Instead of, hating on the people who are successful because they've got the testicular fortitude to pursue them, why don't you go out there and make some better choices for yourself? Go out there and explore all your options and pursue the options. Because it's too easy to just say you're not where you want to be because it's all somebody else's fault, right? All right. So it's starting to rain. I don't want to get wet, so I'm going to wrap it up. Hope you guys got something out of this. See you for more next time.